Today on DIY with the Doc, we are going to fix a three-way switch. Lacey is closely supervising this operation. Hi, sweetheart. Who's a good girl? Here's our switch. Here's our light. There's our switch over there on that far wall. Right about there. And that's not working real well. So today, we are going to test why this switch isn't working and maybe fix it. Join us on DIY with the Doc. Got a three-way switch just not doing what it's supposed to do? Join us on today's DIY with the Doc as we fix our three-way switch. Hey everybody, and welcome back to DIY with the Doc. Today, we're going to take a look at a three-way switch. We have a light in our living room that has never quite worked the way we'd like it to work. We have a switch on one side of the room, another on another side of the room, and they don't quite work the way they should. So we're going to take a look at that. Let me show you what we're looking at here. Here is the switch. Here is Sully supervising my work. Hi, buddy. Hey, you good boy. You good boy, you going to watch? All right. Here's our switch, and I'm just going to kind of orient you as I hit the switch. Okay, great. So there's on, there's off. Okay, great. So here's the problem. Let's turn that on again. And let's cross the room. You coming, buddy? Of course you are. So here we are on the other side of the room, and we're going to hit this switch. Dope. Here's what happens when we flip that switch. Nothing. So what that means is this switch is just not wired correctly. So what we're going to do is we are going to test it. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's not a hard thing to do. There's lots of good videos on YouTube, better than mine, to doing this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to video it. I'm going to throw it up there. Hopefully it's helpful for you. So join us as we fix a three-way switch. What are we going to need to do our repair today? We're going to need a pair of gloves. We're going to need a flathead screwdriver. This happens to be a multi-bit screwdriver. Whenever I'm working with electricity, the first step, of course, is to turn the power off. I then also prefer to work with an insulated piece of equipment. This is an insulated screwdriver, and you can tell that because it's rated right here. If you can see, it's rated up to 1,000 volts. So in the event that you had something weird happened, this provides you a layer of protection. So we're going to need our insulated screwdriver, our 6-in-1 pliers, and our multimeter. You can do this whole job with this screwdriver and just by, flipping bits around and changing them out. But like I said, I prefer the added layer of protection. We're going to first turn the power off. Let's see what we got. Our power, and we're just going to check. Hi, Sally boy. We're going to check to see if the light is still on, and our light is still on. So this is a really good lesson. I don't know if you can see that. The light is still on. This is a great lesson. We went out to the box. We flipped the breaker that said living room lights. Still on. So there are times when the breaker is not going to be labeled exactly correctly. That's why I always like to double check. So instead of going out and flipping that breaker and then taking the switch out, we're going to take the time to figure out which breaker that is and make sure we don't have any power here. We're going to obviously test it before we touch it anyway, but a little tip for you. So let's go back to the breaker, see what's going on here. We have a light off. We're going to activate our switch just to be sure. No, we're good there. We're going to activate the fan just to be sure. No, good there. Now, I'm going to take this panel off. We're going to test the power just to be sure. But a great example of how that was labeled, bizarrely enough, breakfast on the panel, and what's labeled living room lights on the panel didn't work. So always check and double check. So let me get this plate off. I'm going to take that plate off and we'll get started. Okay, so now we have our switches. And you can begin to see that this switch, which is our fan switch, is skinnier. So everybody see that? It's a little skinnier. This is called a single pole switch. This switch, three-way switch, a little bigger, a little beefier. This is a 3-way switch. So this is the switch that we're going to be looking into. But the very first thing I'm going to do before I look into that is I'm going to test it to make sure that there's no power. So let me grab my meter. And again, we want to plug our meter in the right way. We're testing voltage now. So we want our red lead in here and our black lead in where it says common. Okay, so we've got our probes hooked up. We are going to set our meter to voltage, which is that setting right there. And we're getting a big fat 0 as we read that. So I'm going to just set this down. And wait for our meter to settle down a little bit. What we're looking for is to make sure that we don't have a voltage spike. We got 0 there. We go to our common here. And we've got 0 there. So we've got zeros. We don't have power on this thing. It's safe to take this out. So we're going to shut our meter off. And let's pop this switch out here. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, and you can see that these are push-in connectors. First thing we're going to do is take these wires out of their push-in connectors. To do that, hello, Sully boy. The best thing to do is you can do one of two things. You can put a flathead screwdriver in there and press, or you can simply sort of wiggle them out straight, however you want to do it. Let's take our ground wire off first. Okay, so we're loose there, and I like to, as I take these wires out, I like to just spread them out a little bit. All right, let me get this worked off here, and I'll come right back. We struggle to get this switch out, and what I want you to notice here is, and I'm glad this happened because it let me point something new out to you. I got the switch out. But what happened was, if you can see that, and that, and that, those are pieces of the old wire that are still in there. Now, theoretically, you should be able to stick a small screwdriver in here and force it down and pop that wire out. And if you can do that, great. Didn't work for me, and it hasn't worked for me in a couple other switches. So the other thing is, if these are called slide-in connectors, if you find your switch uses these slide-in connectors, I would see that make sure you get every piece of that wire out of there. Now, is it the end of the world necessarily? Well, I don't know, but it kind of offended my sense of doing this thing right. So what I did is I went to the hardware store and I just picked myself up a new couple of switches, $2 at the hardware store. So for something like this where there's pieces broken off in there, it's not worth it from a safety perspective to me. I'm just going to get a new switch. Instead of using, and here are the slide-in connectors you can see on here, I'm not going to use these slide-in connectors. I'm going to go ahead and do the wraps and wrap right to the screws. So let me take this over to the switch, and we'll get the other one off there, and we'll get this tested. Because I've chosen to just replace these switches, I'm just going to go ahead, instead of wrestling with the switch, I'm just going to go ahead and cut them. Okay, so now, and I'm going to separate these wires while I have them here. Again, we know the power's off. We verified that. The reason I separated those is our next step is I'm going to strip some off here so that we have enough to bend. And then I'm going to take, I'm going to make sure that they're all separated on the other one, and I'm going to turn the power back on because we need to locate our hot wire. I suspect which one is the hot, but I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to take a look and we're going to test it and we're going to be sure. Our power back on now. We are going to go to voltage, and we are going to try to figure out which of these is our hot wire. So first we're going to test these two. We got nothing. Then we're going to test this one. Okay, so we've got really very little voltage over here. Okay, so that means that our hot is probably over here and our common is over there. So might be, yep, there you go, 123. So going from our ground over to this white wire, this is our hot wire. And I don't know if you can see this, but in the back there, the white wire is wrapped around all the other wires. Yep. So our hot wire, we've now identified. We're just going to make sure. Yeah, we got nothing there. We got nothing there. So that white wire is our hot wire. So we're going to go ahead, put a piece of tape around that white wire, and now we know where our hot wire is. Back off. I verified that with my meter, and I'm just going to mark this wire as our hot. We're still off. Now it's just a matter of, we're going to go with our white wire, our hot. We know that that's our hot now. We are going to go to the black screw, which is the hot or common screw. We're going to go ground wire to ground. And then these other two are our travelers. They can go on our two brass screws. These two don't matter in terms of order. This one definitely goes to black and this one definitely goes to green. So let me get that wired up. We're going to do the same thing over there, but first we got to figure out which are our traveler wires over there. So I'm going to leave the switch here for a second. And we're going to go over to the other switch and figure out which are our traveler wires. And to do that, and again, power's off, we're going to wire nut these two travelers together. We know they're travelers. And then we're going to go over there and check for continuity. So let me do that, and I'll show you what that looks like. We know that's hot. We now know these are travelers, right? So we are going to wire nut these together. And again, you don't need to be pretty about this. You just need to get them connected together, and that's it, okay? Now we're going to take our meter, we're going to put it to continuity, okay? So I don't know if you can see that sort of Wi-Fi looking signal there. So we're going to go over here, and we can check and make sure it's continuity. It says open line right now. If we get an audible signal. So we're going to go over to these lines, and when we touch the right two lines, we are going to get a tone, and they are going to be for sure connected, completing a circuit with those two over there. So they will be for sure our travelers, okay? So let's try. Nope, it's not those two. There we go. These are our travelers, okay? What we know now, and I'm going to put these down here. Okay, so these are our travelers. Travelers are trending downward. So we know that this is our common. So we've now completely verified, and if we wanted to make sure of this, we would keep this on here, and I'd send somebody over there to take that wire nut off, and what would happen is it would stop because that circuit would be broken. But we now know for sure these are our travelers. So this is our common, these are our two travelers, this is our ground. Now we just wire them up. So let me go ahead and get them rewired. I'll show you that process. We'll go from there. I like to bend these. I like to do a wrap, and we're just going to wire them up. So let's grab our screwdriver here. We're going to go ground to ground, and again, power's off. We are sure that the power's off. And when you wrap these, important to wrap them in a way where as you tighten, it's just going to kind of pull them a little bit tighter with the connection, okay? We know that this is our hot, right? We know that for sure. So we're going to take our hot, we're going to wrap it. found our screw. And important to make sure there's no wire sticking out the other side, right? So in fact, I'm gonna make this bend a little bit better with my pliers here. And this is a much more secure connection. At least my electrician buddies tell me that this is a more secure connection than the slide-ins are, okay? And our travelers, again, so we've got our hot, we've got our ground, and our travelers can really go on either one. It really doesn't matter which one goes on which one. And again, you want to make sure that they're seated in nicely. There's not any kind of excess wire sticking out. They're all secure, and you want to get them down, you know, cranked down pretty good so that that's real secure. I like to bend these at the bottom here so that they can kind of fold up into the box on their own. And we'll get the switch reseated here. And again, I'm going to leave that piece of tape there. That's not hurting anybody. And that will identify if I ever need to get into this again, that will do a really nice job of telling me where my hot is. And again, for safety's sake, we're going to make sure those are flush. We're going to make sure that, again, power's off here, that tape is well away. It's not sitting up against anything. The wires are all back in. And before we put that cover on, I'm going to go rewire this switch. We're going to go green to ground. And again, power's off, so we're not concerned necessarily. We're always making sure that we're working safely. And to see how this one's kind of sticking out a little bit there, I'm going to go ahead and grab my pliers. And I'm just going to clean that up a little bit, okay? And again, you want to do that to make sure that the connection is secure, that ground isn't going to come loose on you, and we're in good shape. Again, here's our hot, or our common, okay? We're going to take that over to our common, and important that we put it on the right way here, so we're going to swing it around so that when we tighten it, we're tightening it securely against the connection. And there we go. See how that wraps around and locks in? That's what you want to see. Our travelers, again, doesn't matter which of these two screws each of these goes on, but I'm just going to kind of pull them out here and make sure that everything's sort of loose enough and it's not going to get wonky on us. And if we need to, we can always go to our pliers. But I think we're going to be in pretty good shape here. And again, we're making sure that when we tighten these up, our wire stays stable and there's no connection sticking out behind that, and there's not. Last one here. And again, very secure. Everything's good in there. Got our ground. We're wired appropriately here. And again, I like to kind of clean these up, bend them a little bit so that they can fold naturally on their own as we put them back. And before I put the cover back on, don't ask me how I know this, by the way. Don't ask me how I learned that lesson. Before I put this cover back on, I'm going to make sure that this thing works. Okay, so we're back in. We got our switch mounted. It looks good, no wires sticking out. I'm going to go turn the power back on. We're going to see if these switches work. We're going to see if we did this repair the right way. Trick to see this tape thing. As you test each breaker to see if this is mislabeled, and ours was, when you test one, you put a piece of tape on it. So you know you've done that one. That'll save you from coming back to the box and going, oh my God, which one did I do? Which one didn't I do? Here's our power. We're going to turn it back on. I'm going to take this tape off of my box. Let's go see if this light works. Sully boy, where are you? Hi, Lacey girl. Lacey's going to supervise this aspect of the installation. So here we have our switch. Hey, look, it works. Here's what's going to be important. We are going to walk over. Lacey, you want to turn that switch for me? No, you're out of here. Good call. Here we go. Moment of truth, folks. Hey, look at that. It works. So now this is wired successfully, and each one of these could control the other. I could go over to the other one and I could switch it off, and I'll show you just for fun. Hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. We've now wired it successfully. That is a 3-way switch fixed. Sully boy, we did it, buddy. We did it, buddy. We did it, buddy. We did it, buddy. Good job. That's a good boy. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We've fixed the 3-way switch. Hope this video was helpful. If you have any doubts about this stuff, call an electrician. Electricity can be a little bit scary. I'm going to put these covers back on, and we are done. Have a great day, everybody. See you later.